This sitting is resumed. Honourable Member for St. James South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to rise and join the debate in support of the bill that has been put forward by my honourable colleague from St. Philip South. It is a bill, Mr. Speaker, that is so important to the growth of the Barbadian economy and so important to the expansion of trade in animals and trade in fisheries, etc., that will open new opportunities for young people who are seeking to find places in which they can be a part of what is happening inside Barbados. But I rise to share because I want to take the opportunity to indicate to Barbadians that Barbados is in a place and living in a time where we do not have the ability to determine everything we want to do and do it how we want to do it when we wish to do it. Many, many years ago, before the world was so highly integrated, nations could sit down, governments could sit down and determine their policy based on the dynamics and the needs of the people that are in front of them, based on the resources, based on the internal dynamics that would be occurring. But today, because we now live in a highly integrated economic system where you have a number of major international bodies who determine how you can do things and when you can do things, governance today is a whole different kettle of fish. And this is seen in particular in this area of sanitary and phytosanitary legislation and requirements, and the various requirements that come out from the World Trade Organization. And because that transition has been made gradually over time, Barbadians have not become alerted to the fact that many of the things that they anticipate can be done at will can no longer be done in that way. That countries now have to set strategies, develop policies, and work through the dynamics of the international situation and see how they can extract from it the best that is available given the dynamics and the constraints that they are faced with. And that is why sometimes people may feel that we might not be responding to certain needs in a way that seems so straightforward, so simple, not recognizing that Barbados has to respond to a number of obligations. And the World Trade Organization is one such entity that has set conditions that affects what is happening to the ordinary citizen. But I can tell you that the average fisherman down in Paynes Bay has no idea that what we can and cannot do for him is being governed not just by what we would choose to do, but what the terms and conditions allows us to do. Or the fisherman at Oystins, or the farmer, or the small business. And so what I want to do is to help us to understand how that integrated system is impacting us and what is it we need to do. Because the international bodies now set down criteria, guidelines, regulations, etc., if you're talking about the OECD, if you're talking about WTO, whoever it is, it means that Barbados, from its foreign affairs and foreign policy position, has to have an aggressive, assertive program as to how we're going to engage all of those world bodies and try to create the space that will give room for a government to be able to fulfill the vision that they have set up as the target that they would like to have for citizens. And it means very often, sir, that if you want to engage those international bodies, you have to be present. You have to be there. There's some things just cannot be negotiated from afar. And I know sometimes that there are citizens in Barbados who don't understand why foreign policy is important, why you have to fly to a meeting, why you have to go here or go there. But I'll share a quick story with you, which was one of the first lessons that I was taught in my Master's for International Trade Policy. It said the animals got together and decided that they needed to have a meeting because they were tired of humans eating them at will. That they were under threat, they were at risk, They were stressed and they'd had enough. So they felt that the best negotiating thing was for them to come together as animals and decide who they were going to offer in sacrifice to humans and agree and negotiate with the humans that these would be used for your food and you leave the rest of us alone. On the day of the meeting, they said the chicken said that she was too busy, she couldn't come. The cow said, that is foolishness, because somebody ain't doing it, so he ain't turn up neither. She didn't turn up either. And then the pig did not get the memo that said a meeting was taking place. Well, the result now is history. That humans consume large portions of poultry, pork, beef, because those animals did not understand that they had to turn up to the meeting. So the rest of the animals made the determination that they would be sacrificed. And that is why our first lesson was, you have to turn up. But it is challenging, Mr. Speaker. It is challenging because you are a small nation with limited resources, limited technical officers, but you have to try to be in every arena that is critical and important to you to make sure you're there to make representation so that the terms and conditions can be mitigated against as best you can to make it possible to work with a policy that at least gives you a fighting chance to give your citizens the opportunity to live their best life. And that is why Barbados is at the table and has to be. And so in the area of the World Trade Organization, there are a number of rules governing the issue of food and the issue of health in terms of production of food. And what the Honourable Member for St. Philip South has put before us is another piece of legislation that is going to assist us to build a very strong national agricultural health and food control program. And why is it necessary? To be able to give other countries the confidence that they can do business with Barbadian enterprises. To give confidence to the ministries of health in other jurisdictions that yes, the food from Barbados will be acceptable because it will meet the standard which we have. And therefore, I want to thoroughly applaud the Honourable Member for St. Philip South and his entire team, because Barbados has needed this legislation for many a day. And every day and every year that we have not had this legislation, it has cost Barbados dearly. Barbados, part of CARICOM, part of CARIFORUM, is part of an economic partnership agreement with the EU and with the UK. And one of the things that constrains us in terms of being able to build trade with the EU and with the UK is the fact that we do not have the SPS legislation in place, the inspections and labs, etc., that would allow us to be able to certify our meat and fish products so that we can trade more across the world. And so Barbados has always been limited to the few places that do not insist on countrywide certification, but only want to certify the specific manufacturing center that that product has come from. That's why we're able to do fish to United States. But we cannot sell fish in the EU or the UK because we are not certified under proper SPS legislation. And so our fishermen have not had the benefit, our farmers have not had the benefit of demand from these countries that they can build larger commercially operated enterprises that can sell meat and animal products across the world. But sir, that is not even the worst thing. The worst thing is that for a long time, CARICOM itself did not have a policy to govern trade in animal products in this region. So that limited again the capacity of our country to be able to put chicken out in the market. because there was no policy among the CARICOM states to allow for this. And what did that mean? It meant that our production in food, in vegetables, root crops, our production in fish, our production in meat, we could not build scale because we did not have the demand that would allow us to build scale and therefore make and keep those products at a reasonable price for the consumer domestically and for the consumer regionally. As the Minister with responsibility for foreign trade, I sit at COTED and lead the charge on behalf of Barbados when it comes to dealing with these matters. And I can tell you that it is only in this year, that we were able to sit down and agree that we were going to pass our policy that governed trade in animals and animal products. And what would that do? It would now allow trade to take place right across the region. So we've been keeping ourselves back. We've been slowing down our own growth. And what has been the end result of that? Because we could not do that, you have literally hundreds of millions of dollars in animal products brought into this region because we did not have a policy for trading among ourselves, and because we did not have the SPS legislation, we could not benefit from exporting anything to anybody. And sir, from day one when I hit this job, it was of concern to me because I knew how important it was for Barbados to get this legislation and to honor the member from St. Philip South when we talked about it. When he talked with his officers, he said this has to be a priority. And though it has taken a long time because you have to negotiate, all the stakeholders got to get involved, everybody doesn't agree to everything, you need to do research and analysis and go backwards and forwards, until you can come up with something that would work. And then on top of that, you need money. It's okay to talk, but you now need money to put in place the equipment, to put in place all of the things that you need in order to make this legislation work. And sir, this is a terrific milestone that Barbados has reached today because of the excellent work done by the Honourable Member for St. Philip South. And I want to applaud him and his team for that. What else does this do? We are working on our fisheries program. This government has already spent money on fish aggregating devices, seeking to multiply the amount of fish that our fishermen can harvest from the seas. And why is this important? Sir, because we have Taiwanese boats, boats from other countries that come through these waters and gather enormous quantities of fish. They take that fish, especially the blue tuna, sell it at near $50 a pound in their jurisdiction, and we have not been able to earn a penny of that because we've not been able to maximize our fishing, and we have not been able to do what was necessary to capture those markets. So other people come, take it, process it in plants that are SPS compliant, and then they sell it, not just to their own domestic markets, they sell it all across the world. London, England buys a lot of the fish that we purchase here at $6 and $7 and $8 a pound, and they're prepared to pay close to $20 a pound for that same fish. That is money that we have been missing in our economy. So this work is going to cause a tremendous expansion in the earning capacity of Barbados if we continue to press and complete the work that is necessary, work with our enterprises to see the new vision of where they can go and what they can earn, whether in animals, whether in fish, and give them the support which they need. Now, one of the things, Mr. Speaker, that is important to me is that policy has to be coherent. It can't be scattershot and it can't be all over the place. Everything has to work together. So when the Honourable Member for St. Philip South started the expansion and the inclusion of new farmers into an agricultural program, people who had never had the opportunity before, 400 people brought into that feed program and taught how to engage in not only growing crops, but also doing livestock, honey, and all kinds of new products that Barbados never had the opportunity to so do. That has given hope to people. I can tell you that I have men in my constituency who have been able to get into that program. And if you see the light of joy and hope in their eyes, because they were there frustrated with the dream to become a farmer, but could not see how they could get in. And now, through that feed program, they're able to be in. But they don't just want to be in, they want to be able to make money. So you have to be able to sell your produce. And if you grow the number of farmers and the number of fishermen, it's going to come to a point where the domestic market will only absorb so much. So you have to have ways in which you're going to export it that you can earn foreign exchange. And that is exactly what the SPS allows us to do. It means that with joy, I will be able to pick up a phone and tell a counterpart in the EU or the UK that we are now compliant, and say to them, we want to accelerate trade once we've completed all the things that have to go along with it, so that we can see growth in this area. And what has Barbados been missing? Sir, when I checked around the region, there are a number of countries that have been compliant and have this legislation and facilities in place. And they have been earning from the markets that have been closed to us. For example, sir, Guyana is able to export shrimp and fish, live animals into the EU. And they have seen a 138% increase in those exports. Barbados wants to be a part of that. Suriname exports close to $12.3 million in shrimp, 3.3 million in fish, a 50% increase into the EU. Barbados wants to be a part of that. Little St. Kitts, tiny little island, the Emerald Isle, that claims to look and feel a little bit like Barbados, but smaller than we are. They're actually exporting $1 million worth of tuna to the EU. We cannot export half pound. Bahamas, lobster, shellfish, $109.5 million US. They are able to export into the EU. Why? Because they have the legislation, they have the labs, they have the inspection, and they can earn money. And their fishermen can look forward to giving their children a wonderful life, because you can earn substantially from these trades. These trades don't have to be hand to mouth. These trades don't have to be pennies. These trades don't have to be inconsistent and not able to properly support a family and give them a good living, a nice home, give the children a good education. It can happen as long as you are able to get the trade and be able to take your products into the other markets that have a high demand for them. And through what has been put on this table today, our fishermen and our farmers have an opportunity to be able to do so and to know that they can offer their children a good life and that they can hold their heads up, that they have an honorable profession just like anybody else, because we are making a way for trade to happen. So, sir, I believe this is a dream of mine. Occasionally, I get the chance to chat to the honorable member about it. I don't get to be able to tell him all. But, sir, I can tell you no, that I look forward to the day when our chicken, our black belly sheep, our pork and our fish, that those industries take off in such a meaningful way and begin to earn for Barbados, because we've been successful. And the honourable member would have mentioned earlier that the other things that have to go together with this to make it work. And one of those things is training. What hurts me is that a number of hotels have been able to escape purchasing domestic produce because they're able to claim that we cannot provide the cuts in the way that they would like, and therefore can continue to bring in duty-free these items which Barbadian fishermen and farmers can do. But the honourable member for St. Philip South is going to fix that. The Ministry of Education, we're going to make sure that we are able to offer the cuts in such a way that they then can rely on Barbadian supply, so that our visitors are able to eat a domestic product and be able to enjoy some black belly lamb, boast about it and go home and ask to have access to it, and create a space for us to be able to fulfill the dream of 1 million sheep, where we're going to be able to export not only the lamb, but we are going to be able to start leathercraft. I would like to have the honor of wearing a Barbadian-made leather bag and shoes coming from black belly sheep. I'm looking forward to that. Now, sir, all of this speaks, and this is the last thing I will share, all of this speaks to the fact that if we are going to make it in a highly integrated world economic system that sets out rules and conditions for all countries regardless of their size, regardless of their resources, they say, tough, sorry, you have to meet it, otherwise we will blacklist you. Tough, sorry, we're going to block you. It means that Barbados has to pay careful attention to international levels of quality, that we can no longer do things how we feel like doing them, treating to our processes based on what is comfortable for us or what we can afford, that we now as a nation have to pay attention to the international quality of our goods and our services. It is the only way we're going to earn a top dollar that will allow Barbadians to live the high middle income life that they take for granted. We can only sustain it if we have enterprises that can operate at that level. And therefore, in the Ministry of Energy and Business, one of the documents that will be going forward shortly, has been completed, is our National Quality Policy document that lays out the policy on quality across all of the various sectors, where we are going to be able to work with all of our enterprises and work with our workers as well, to help them to understand that we now have to work to the highest quality level in the most efficient way, so that we're able to give quality at a reasonable price. And that is going to be a very big undertaking. And this SPS program that has been headed by the Honourable Member for St. Philip South is a part of that quality emphasis. It's going to mean people have to change their attitudes towards work. People are going to have to understand that when a process is laid out in the workplace, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, that they must be done in that order and to the standard required for each step, so that we can win global excellence and as a result command a space for Barbadian products and Barbadian services all across the world. And the Ministry of Energy and Business stands ready to work with enterprises across Barbados to be able to make this happen. But it's not going to be easy. It never is. There isn't a single person in Barbados who doesn't want high quality service. But not everybody is willing to change their habits and behaviors to deliver it, because change is uncomfortable. Everybody in Barbados would like to have a quality product at a good price. But every enterprise may not want to invest the money that is going to be needed to be able to transform their enterprise to be able to deliver on that quality. But that is the direction in which Barbados has to go and must go. We don't have silver or gold. We don't have frankincense and myrrh. What we have are people, and we must make the best use of our people and develop that quality excellence and place it in every sphere of Barbadian life so that we are able to command a place internationally for all of our products, all of our services. And so Barbadian products will become a household name in the world. This is what this government, these honourable members sitting here, this is what we are committed to. This is what we want to work towards. And we're inviting every single Barbadian to come on this journey. But I want to commend to this honourable chamber and to you and to the country at large this bill that has been put here by the honourable member for St. Philip South to strengthen our national agricultural health and food control system so that we are able to do good business in relation to agriculture and fisheries in this country for the benefit of the many families that depend on it for their livelihood and want to be able to use it as their pathway to prosperity. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for St. Lucie.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to just make a brief intervention in this very important piece of legislation being brought here to this Honourable House today. As indicated by the Honourable Minister, Member for St. Philip South, the Animal Health and Veterinary Public Health Bill 2022 and Plant Protection Bill 2022, Mr. Speaker, this represents a very significant and important achievement in Barbados in our bid to strengthen national agricultural health and food control system. This is critical, Mr. Speaker, in our effort to comply as we are a small country and we are competing in a large world. This piece of legislation is critical in our efforts to comply with the World Trade Organization. Having served in this ministry, Mr. Speaker, I know and I have been part of the several meetings, Mr. Speaker, to discuss this legislation as we start to put things in place so that we become, as a country, compliant, not in breach of the World Trade Organization standards. Mr. Speaker, it is to ensure that the food which we consume, first of all, this food is safe. This piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, is also to prevent the entry and spread of establishment of pests or diseases among animals and plants. And in order for us to successfully compete in today's global marketplace, we must have this legislation in place. Most of us, Mr. Speaker, from time to time, and when I looked at the depth of this legislation and how it gives us the ability to be able to export fish and meats and so on, when I look at this legislation, Mr. Speaker, and most of us visit from time to time our fish markets across Barbados. And when we do that, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, from the moment, if you're inside, when you open, you get out of your vehicle, you are met more often than not by anxious fisher folk who want to be in a position to sell to you their fish and to make a dollar. This piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, opens up and creates space for people like them, in that you are not just now out there providing for locals, you'll be in a position to sell that with our measures in place, we as a country are able to support. So straight away the market is opened up, so to speak, to give that opportunity that is required. If you are competing in a very small space, Mr. Speaker, we are a small country. You compete in a small space, you can only compete to so many people. And so it becomes then, I don't want to call, it becomes a situation where everybody is jostling for a position, jostling and pushing for sales, etc. But if we can create, and we have created through this legislation, the space which gives all our fisher folk and other producers of various meats from time to time, Mr. Speaker, the opportunity to be able to make a dollar, because we are going to be in a position to be able to export to the world, to the region, to the world, once this legislation, Mr. Speaker, is passed and it is put in place. We recognize, Mr. Speaker, that when we strengthen, and we heard the Honourable Minister spoke, Honourable Member for St. Philip South spoke, and he advised that in 2003, it was agreed by the Planning and Priorities Committee that adequate laboratory facilities were necessary. Then we submitted, Mr. Speaker, for funding, because everything that comes about, it needs funds to be able to execute. And sometimes we do not understand this, and we have to reinforce these things for the ordinary person in Bush Hall, in Savannah Road, and those areas, and persons, Mr. Speaker, in Crab Hill and Josie Hill, and out Swampy Town, and Rose Hill too, to be able to understand because when these people hear about this kind of legislation, perhaps some of them are not clear on what it is doing and what the benefits of it are, because somebody may be listening, Mr. Speaker, now, and so they're debating these things and they don't understand what's going on, not recognizing that by putting this in place, it is going to be of a significant benefit, Mr. Speaker, to the ordinary person, the ordinary fisherman, the ordinary animal, person that raises the animals, and so on, to be able to have that space where we can now export to the region, to the world. And Mr. Speaker, I can recall the several meetings, and I don't know if the Honourable Member for St. Philip South recall this, or Mr. Speaker, I remember one Friday evening. Friday, we had about 7 meetings in one day, with the last one commencing about 5:30, 6 o'clock. And knowing that, and Friday evening, like today, is the time when people look to get out, Mr. Speaker, and go in your constituency, perhaps have a libation, not me, and enjoy the weekend. But, Mr. Speaker, this particular ministry led by the Honourable Member for St. Philip South was busy dealing with matters like these. It was of such significance and importance to get this legislation in place so that the ordinary person, and sometimes constituents too, from time to time they complain and they will say to you that they don't see you. And we all want to see our constituents. We love to be with our constituents and so on. But sometimes in order for the constituents to receive greater benefit through what is being done for the country, you have to take time away. And when I was there, Mr. Speaker, and that Friday evening, I said to myself, I didn't tell the minister, but confession is good for the soul now. I said, but minister, he crazy, a Friday evening. But it was important, Mr. Speaker.
You are not an Adventist, sir.
No. It was absolutely important that we get this piece of legislation and other things that have been done in agriculture for the benefit of the ordinary person, because this is important. It is absolutely important that these people understand what a parliament does, and even when things, sometimes that's why we have to break it down as much as we possibly can, so that they get and they see the significance and the importance of what we are doing as we come to this house, Tuesday after Tuesday, or sometimes on Fridays or whenever, that they understand. And I, Mr. Speaker, want to support. We had many early morning meetings. So there were some times that you met early, sometimes you met very often during the course of the day, sometimes you met late, but all in an effort, Mr. Speaker, to put the right legislation and proper legislation in place that would be beneficial to the people of Barbados in all our constituencies. And as we have come to this point, Mr. Speaker, I have no choice but to support the Honourable Minister and support this legislation, Mr. Speaker. And as I went through last night when I got the brief, I said to myself, well, definitely I would have to support this here because I know the hard work. I know the hard work, and we have to commend the public servants too in the ministry. We have to commend them because I don't know whether people grumble or not, but they work as much as possible to put this and get these things in place in order that Barbados can reap the benefits, the full benefit. Because when we allow countries smaller than us to push us out because they recognize what has to be done and they put their shoulders to the wheel and they make sure that it is done in a timely manner, we as a country, Mr. Speaker, we have to be willing, and we can see from this legislation that the minister, the Honourable Minister Member for St. Philip South, and when I look, Mr. Speaker, at the number 5 on the brief, and I see SPS, that don't mean St. Philip South, but it's coincidental. It is coincidental that is what it is. There's SPS, right? But I'm grateful, and I want to commend the Honourable Minister, the member for St. Philip South, on bringing this bill to Parliament. As I said, we had several reports, we had several consultations, and when people complain that this government is not a consultative government, I beg to differ. Because more than any other, the government does not sit down, and the government works, and not only does it work, but the government consults with all the different agencies and entities in this country to be able to get the best view, to get the best knowledge, to come to put on in legislation for the people of Barbados. So when people complain that we don't consult, several times, meetings, Ask for reports, Mr. Speaker. Talk to people to ensure that what we bring makes sense and that Barbadians can benefit, Mr. Speaker. So I want to take this opportunity and this brief intervention to commend the staff of the ministry, all of them who were instrumental, Mr. Speaker, in working hard, even when I was in the ministry and even from the beginning with the minister, to get the right and proper legislation in place for Barbados to be able to move forward, to position Barbados to a different point, at another level, Mr. Speaker, where we can earn, and earn not just from locals now, but earn from the region and internationally. Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Member for Christchurch Central.
Mr. Speaker, I am very proud this afternoon to share just a very few words and thoughts on this important piece of legislation. And the Honourable Member who led this debate, I know he understands the importance that this will help transform this country for ordinary people. The Honourable Member for St. Lucie who just spoke, reiterated, and it's something, sir, that in my professional experience, whilst I'm not an expert in animal health or food safety or any such, sir, in 2011, sir, having moved back to Barbados in 2010, I started a company in 2011, sir. And I did consultancy services in Barbados and across the region. And I had the honor, sir, and I call it an honor, of joining the Chamber of Commerce and participating as part of their Trade and Economic Policy Committee. And as far back as 2011, 12, sir, the Chamber of Commerce, they were advocating to the government of the day of the importance of being able to bring this legislation and put it in place in order to help drive growth. Now, you would appreciate, sir, that all of us will recall back in 2011-12, things were rough, they were tight, and they got progressively worse, sir. But this was one of the areas that had Barbados done this 10 years ago, 9 years ago, sir, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, would have put us in a completely different position from certainly what we experienced, and certainly when COVID-19 came, sir, would have of great benefit. And I will explain why, sir. Because whilst I speak of my involvement at the level, sir, then of the Chamber of Commerce, and for the ordinary citizen, they may believe that, well, that's a big business type thing. And that, I get that that's the perception. I recall, sir, a very strong advocate of this who is heavily involved in the poultry industry, always explaining to the members of the chamber that this was not only going to help those who are large within the context of the poultry industry, but it would mean, sir, as you and I both know, sir, and all of us in here, all of us have constituents, sir, who have small chicken pens, all littered all across Barbados, who are doing very good business because, as you know, sir, Barbados is self-sufficient in poultry. And therefore, as a natural advantage, if you want to put it that way, that it would allow this specific piece of legislation would allow Barbados not just to put the architecture in place, but to be able to allow the expansion, sir, the expansion of businesses from Waterhall land, sir, from in Lodge Road where I am, sir, to the Pine, sir, St. Thomas, all across this country, for people to be able to have access to greater markets. Had we put this legislative framework in place, then you will see, sir, the exportation as it relates to not just cruise ships as they dock here, but certainly, sir, in terms of the provisioning from a poultry perspective, but the export, sir. I want you to know that you have access to the market, because we all hear about non-tariff barriers and all these types of things. And we got the best chicken in the world. And we should let people know that we got the best chicken in the world, sir. And because we got the best chicken in the world, we have now to make the investment to ensure then that ordinary citizens, sir, can participate. But it is not just legislation alone, sir, that is important. It's to get the conversation going with people about what this will mean for their lives. And I think the Honourable Member for St. Lucie just raised that point very, 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 very clearly. Because whilst the push has been coming at one level, we now need to make sure, sir, that this thing is clearly understood right across the length and breadth of Barbados. Now, sir, one of the areas that is going to be important, and I want to urge maybe perhaps, sir, the BIDC or the National Standards Institute, sir, is to sensitize the public, sir, and in this instance, as to how can we modernize the design of our chicken pens. And I break it down, sir, so that people understand the difference between what we know now and what is possible, sir, in the context of being able to transform the lives of ordinary people. And it doesn't really take a lot, sir, with respect to the design, because if people understood very clearly that for you to be able to meet the specific standard for export purposes, then you have to make some very small adjustments to the design of your chicken runs to ensure that once the chicks are received, in that instance, they're fed for the 6 weeks, sir, and then they're slaughtered, and then move on to the export space, that there's the ability to trace right back, sir, to where things have come from. And that is where we have been butting our heads, sir, for years, because we have not done the very small little things, sir, to ensure that everybody could participate. And I want to urge all Barbadians that whilst this initiative here today, on the eve of Christmas, is intended to cure a long-standing issue, let us not rest on the laurels and make sure that in 2023, that between the BNSI and the BIDC, that they can come up with the specific design requirements, sir, that would allow for investment, new investment, sir, because people already have a very strong track record in producing poultry in this country. Strong track record, financially and otherwise. And therefore, they are already known to financial institutions, sir. And therefore, once we can settle those design matters, sir, to upgrade the facilities, then I know that that would unlock certainly new investment, not just within that space, but the expansion, sir, right across the length and breadth of Barbados as it relates to issues related to poultry. So this is not just a big business venture, sir. And I want the public to understand that these measures are intended to ensure that we can bring Barbadians along the journey of opening up opportunities, not just to supply chickens to the local supermarket, which I know people do, sir, and eggs, which they do very, 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 very well across the length and breadth of Barbados. But the ability now, sir, for us to be able to reach scale such that the export of our poultry products, sir, world-renowned as they are, that we can do so not just with respect to the cruise ships here, but it means, sir, that we too, with respect to moving in relation to cold storage and other areas, that we now can utilize the facilities that we already have in relation to being able to put products on the very large number of empty containers that leave this country on a daily basis, because we have not done the basic framework to be able to get these things done. And I heard the Honourable Member for SPS, St. Philip South, sir, to make the point that the regulatory agencies now, sir, must now see this, and sorry, let me rephrase, sir. The people, the Barbadians, who work in regulatory agencies must now see this as a tool with which they can help transform and build wealth, sir, within the length and breadth of the communities right across Barbados. And therefore, as regulatory bodies and persons who, sir, family to me and you and everybody in here, sir, and everybody in our constituencies, can now see this as an opportunity to create new wealth for generations to come. And therefore, what is important here is not just to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's crossed, sir, but it's to ensure that people understand that this is not a business facilitated measure, business at the nano level, sir. So if you only got 30 chickens, sir, and you get them is the best 30 chickens they got in Barbados, sir, that those 30 chickens can be a part of the overall pool with respect to getting into the export market. Now, as we recover now, sir, as you know from COVID-19, we are working to make sure that there's a stronger linkage between agriculture and tourism and all of the linkages that we've long spoken about, to ensure then that we first cover off with respect to the domestic space, not just as it relates to poultry, because that's already there, sir, but certainly in relation to fish farming and the other areas that I know that the ministry is undertaking to inspire young people to get involved in, that there too, sir, with respect to all the shrimp and stuff that is imported, over the course of the next few years, sir, we want to be able to eliminate that completely. So that ordinary Barbadians, sir, from right here, can participate in those opportunities, not just to supply local hotels and to supply local restaurants, but also, sir, the many cruise ships that will come calling, but also, sir, be able to package and export out of Barbados across the region, and certainly, sir, wherever we can get markets open up for us to be able to go into. So I am very proud, sir, this afternoon to know that this is a very early Christmas present for the people of Barbados. And whilst the present will not be unwrapped totally, sir, to be enjoyed on Christmas Day, we have to set our minds on the task of ensuring that our citizens understand what this will mean for them. So I know that the honourable member for the SPS member will be able to craft a very aggressive communication campaign, sir. And all of us as MPs, all of us, we must now make sure that we go amongst the people who in our constituencies raise chickens, who have fish farms, and these types of things as commercial opportunities, that we explain to them the importance, sir, of what we have done, what is still required to be done. We will have the conversations on the financial side, sir, with respect to once the design measures are agreed from the BNSI and certainly BIDC Export Barbados from that perspective, sir, that once those things are settled, that we can unlock the access to finance to allow these people to be able to upgrade the pen, sir, and to bring the poultry industry now, sir, into the 21st century with respect to being able not just to supply locally, but more importantly, externally. Now, bear in mind, sir, just bear in mind, and I remember the days, sir, when you could go and buy chicken for $10. And I still dream of such a day. I still dream of such a day, sir. A £6 chicken used to be for about $10. I dream of such a day. But we can get there, sir. But we need, in order to get back there, we need skill. That's the reality. And the only way we're going to get skill, sir, is if we add the export part of the equation. And by adding the export part of the equation, sir, it means that your unit costs can go down. And therefore, I look forward at some point in the future, 2-3 years for the honourable member, where we are seeing progressively exports building, that the price of poultry in this country, I think, can moderate, sir, which would allow ordinary Barbadians to feel as if they're benefiting, sir, not just from the wealth creation that will be generated by the extra opportunity, but when you go to the supermarket, sir, that you see the price of the chicken, sir, that the price of chicken now become much more affordable and reasonable, but the only way you will get to that stage, sir, is if you can achieve some skill. So this is a very, very, very important piece of legislation. You would have heard the Prime Minister speak to in the budget that she wanted this legislation passed before the end of the year. Now, yes, I know that this is the last sitting for the year, sir, and we have indeed been able to come here to do this, and this is part of a suite of legislation which is going to be critical, as the Honourable Member indicated. But I want people to realize that, and I think the Honourable Member St. Lucie made it quite clear. Quite clear. This is a government of action, sir. A government that is intended to use all the powers that are available to us in this place to create opportunities for people. Now, I must tell you, sir, opportunity is not just, sorry, excuse me. The opportunity, sir, is not just going to come up Bay Street, turn left, come through the gate, sir, and come and sit down. You lot. It doesn't work so. People must know, sir, recognize what they have to do, sir, in order to get on the highway, so to speak, of opportunity, and therefore be able to help support their family, sir, to be able to hire 2 or 3 more people, sir, from your neighborhood, sir, to be able to help deal with the scale with which we are talking about in relation to this area, such that the recovery that we are talking about in terms of being export-led, and when we talk about private sector export growth, sir, and a growth economy, we're talking about the people in Waterhall, sir, the people in Lodge Road that got chickens, the people in the Pine. I know I see some in the city too. But the reality is, sir, that every Barbadian must now understand that they can participate if they wish, but we will strongly encourage them, sir, to be able to get on board in order to move this process forward. Now, sir, as it relates to the BERT program, and I keep saying to people all the time, sir, the government don't just put things in a document and don't get back to it. This is another element, sir, of us living the execution and implementation of the BERT program. And therefore, we have been consistent, sir, not just with respect to the fiscal management, but consistent with what we said we will do to ensure that we can bring greater opportunity for people so that businesses can grow and continue to grow and to be able to employ as many people as we can, sir, in order to be able to build up this country. And so, sir, this important piece of legislation has my absolute support. It is critically important that the people of this country, notwithstanding the challenges that may face us internationally, sir, that we continue to focus on the execution of our within our day-to-day lives. People can get out there, sir, and talk all kinds of things about things that are not irrelevant to people. But what this government continues to do, sir, on a daily basis remains relevant to the lives of ordinary Barbadians. And I really want to thank the Honourable Member and his team at the Ministry and those who worked with respect to getting this bill here. But I urge, sir, all of the persons involved in the regulatory process, because as I speak, sir, and I've said to Customs already, whilst Customs in the past, sir, have been focused more on how do we protect the border and facilitate imports, when we get this part of the puzzle piece correct, sir, Customs now has to be a facilitator now of exports, of earning the country foreign exchange with respect to what SPSS can deliver. And therefore, the Customs Department, as well as it is not necessarily directly involved as the regulatory agencies in relation to what is before the bill here, is in the bill here. If we are going to earn the foreign exchange, it means that the Customs Department, sir, which is already in the process of reorienting itself to play a more facilitative role with respect to exports, that everybody in Barbados now has to understand that they have to see how they can improve the processes to make it as easy as possible for people to be able to not just make the investment, but walk people through what is expected of them, so that once they do the 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 things and they do it well, sir, and they keep doing it, that there are no hurdles being placed in people's way with respect to the earning of foreign exchange. And therefore, we want Barbados and Barbadians to think of, however small your business is, sir, that you have an opportunity to earn foreign exchange like anybody else in this country. And because we've already liberalized, sir, the foreign exchange market and holding of accounts, the foreign exchange that you earn, sir, that you'll be able to keep the foreign exchange in the account at the bank that you may, of your choosing, sir, with respect to that, because if you earn it, sir, it's part of, it belongs to you. All the government and the, not the government, the central bank will do, sir, is take a small proportion to put into the pool to make sure that we can help build the foreign exchange platform of the country, so that as we do more and more business externally, that we're able to ensure then that the normal things can happen, but that persons will have access to their hard-earned funds. And therefore, sir, I say to people, we now have to start looking at how do we formalize our structures. We are making those things easier, and therefore, this piece of legislation, whilst it will have a very heavy regulatory framework, because here's the thing, sir, anything that we export from Barbados, we want people, when they're going whatever supermarkets they go into, sir, to know that it is top quality, it has met the highest standards, so that the brand name Barbados will resonate, sir, with people. And therefore, people will be able and prepared to pay the premium for the brand Barbados. And therefore, as the regulatory agencies work with Barbadians, I want people to realize that sometimes, sir, you've got to push through that little pain to get the reward at the end. Because the reward at the end, sir, you do it right today, you do it right tomorrow, you don't take no shortcut Sunday, sir, or Monday, but you do it right every time. Because getting it right, we cannot afford to get it wrong, but getting it right every time will ensure that however small our businesses are, no matter what part of the country you may be, sir, that this sanitary and phytosanitary piece of legislation is going to unlock and transform the lives of ordinary people, sir, in this country. And it is another plank for which the Minister of Agriculture will be able to open up for ordinary citizens, sir, ordinary citizens, to be able to help get an extra set of income, but it just requires, sir, us to be faithful to the regulatory framework. And as I said, I hope that the persons involved in the regulatory process will see that they are not just there as guards, sir, or supervisors, but they must work with people. Let them know what is required of them. Help them to be able to meet the standard, because it is in meeting the standard that opens up the opportunity, sir, rather than seeing it as something that you're passing an exam without recognizing that this will have a significant impact on people. And therefore, if you're a practitioner in the space, understand you got to meet the standard. But if you don't meet the standard on this occasion, don't get vexed and throw a tantrum, sir. Pause and understand why you didn't meet the standard. Because in meeting the standard, sir, it means that when it gets to the border of any other country globally, the customs or the plant quarantine or the animal health or anybody else, sir, operating in those borders will feel comfortable taking the products from Barbados. And therefore, if we meet those standards, we maintain those standards, we improve those standards every time, then it makes it easier for us to be able to not feel the full effects of the international global shocks that happen from time to time, and therefore we will be in a position to become much more resilient. I promised that I was not going to say very much, sir, but I am happy that this legislation is before this chamber. There's still work to be done now to make sure that everybody who is involved, either in the poultry industry, the fisheries industry, even within the context of just regular agriculture in relation to agro-processing and a whole range of things, sir, with respect to eliminating the issue of non-tariff barriers stopping Barbadian products from getting on the shelves of others. We settle this, sir, and we all come together as stakeholders to do the pool investment to meet the standards, and in so doing, then I know that not just 2023 will be better, but I know that 2024 and beyond, sir, that this economy will start to grow leaps and bounds. And as the economy grows, sir, and things like mean, sir, that we could ease the taxes a little bit, sir, even further, because you're growing. And therefore, it means you got to regularize yourself. We want you to export. We want you to become just as big as any other brands they have out there. And I know that we have a very strong brand, certainly, as it relates to Caramelas and BADMC. And therefore, if we're able to push these strong Barbadian brands, sir, into the marketplace, then I know that we will not just be building economic resilience, but I believe that the future of our families and our communities, sir, will become much stronger because our young people will see that you get up when the morning come at 4 o'clock and you go to make sure that whether it's the black belly sheep that you got to take out or whatever it is, sir, that you're doing with respect to agriculture, because this don't become, sir, a habit. Because in meeting these standards, it means that you got to be disciplined. And therefore, rather than having too much idle time, it means that you can spend that very valuable time doing something that brings you great joy. You will get some money from it, sir. You'll be able to support your family, and everybody will be able to have a fairly decent lifestyle. But it requires, sir, that each of us, that we are disciplined with respect to whatever aspect that we are doing. And so, sir, I am happy to support this bill. I want to commend the member from St. Philip South for this tremendous work that has been undertaken. And from the Ministry of Finance perspective, I want to say to Barbadians, let's get on board. Let us work with the Ministry of Agriculture and all the regulatory agencies to be able to help facilitate the implementation of this framework so that we can unlock the true potential of Barbados. And with those very few words, sir, I am obliged to you. Thank you.
Honourable Member for St. Philip South.
Mr. Speaker, let me first start by thanking those honourable members who spoke in this debate and give support to this very significant piece of legislation. A couple of things were raised that I wish to respond to. First, with the honourable member for St. James South. The training opportunities for butchers is one that we cannot ignore. Actually, we had a master butcher from the UK who came to Barbados to look at our setup. He has already designed a training program for butchers in Barbados. And come early next year, we will see a number of Barbadian butchers being trained in the specialty cuts that are required for the tourism industry, but generally for restaurants. Mr. Speaker, she also spoke to Leathercraft, and this is a project that was being done with the University of the West Indies at Jukes. That project was delayed again for several years. That conversation started before we became government under the last administration. They were supposed to do all the groundwork to make sure that that was a possible project. Unfortunately, like everything else, it wasn't done. So what you had was just an agreement for a project to be done with the university. I addressed it on a Brass Tacks program on Sunday and came under attack by some people who find it necessary to spend a day calling the program, not knowing what they're speaking about, but are prepared to call people to account for things that are totally not the case. And I made it abundantly clear that the University of the West Indies at Cave campus could not proceed with the project unless the conveyancing was done. And Mr. Speaker, you well know, based on your profession, that I can promise you anything and even put it in writing, but if the conveyancing done, you don't know what you have. And so therefore, a promise was made, an agreement was placed in writing, but the land wasn't conveyanced. The land was also under debt to the Barbados Agricultural Credit Trust, and that had to be resolved as well. But I've said all of that to say that we have now gotten over that hurdle, and the conveyancing was complete, and therefore the project is ready to go ahead. The Chinese have now put up all the signage, the infrastructure is in place, and that is one of the Electrolux things that we have done as a government, cleaning up the mess that was left behind. As far as the shrimp project is concerned, which was raised by the honourable member for Christchurch East Central, I'm happy to report that the project at River in St. Philip, we have just received all the equipment, and very shortly that project will commence. The technical team is coming into Barbados. They will stay there until the project is completed. We have set a timeline for the end of January, and I strongly am confident that we will meet that timeline. And so we shall harvest our first set of locally grown shrimp by the end of March, early April, which is a significant deal. Mr. Speaker, I completely agree with the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, and I made the point earlier this morning when I spoke that this is revolutionary, because the amount of doors that we can unlock for trade now, prior to having this legislation, we were not able to do. And therefore, I now feel confident that the young people in St. Philip South, certainly in your constituency, Mr. Speaker, can come to your office and ask for something that is meaningful, and it can be delivered. Too often we have people showing up asking for help, but there are no projects and there are no systems. So therefore, they have to resort to us being able to find something in government to give to them, and they're not excited about the fact that you can't help them when they show up. The fact that we can have systems in place and legislation like this, sir, gives us an opportunity now to not just give them a job, but perhaps help them find the investment, be it under the Agricultural Development Fund or wherever, to participate, be it in shrimp farming, which is the new way, or the fresh fish farming, or the aquaponic farming that we are doing. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to note that the enactment of this Animal Health and Veterinary Public Health Bill 2022 represents a significant achievement in Barbados' bid to strengthen its national agricultural health and food control systems. And being a signatory to the World Trade Organization, we were there since 1995. It became incumbent for us to be able to carry out these measures. Barbados has been a member of the WTO since its creation in 1995 and is therefore party to these SPS measures. What is even more, the WTO agreement dictates that all countries have the right to maintain sanitary and phytosanitary measures to ensure that food is safe for consumers and to prevent the entry, spread, and establishment of pests or diseases among animals and plants. For Barbados to successfully compete in today's global market, it must have in place a nationally and internationally recognized and accepted agricultural health and food control system. So therefore, we couldn't ignore the reality of getting to this point. But if I didn't do it well enough earlier today when I spoke, Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish really to reinforce what I said earlier when I thanked the international stakeholders who were participating in this with us since we started this journey in 2003. And in 2003, the Planning and Priorities Committee agreed that adequate laboratory facilities were necessary. And the committee advised that the project proposal be submitted, first of all, to the Inter-American Development Bank for funding. We got that support, Mr. Speaker, sir. In 2005, the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development then was able to engage the FAO, Pan American Health Organization, and ICA to give legislative support to this project, sir. And then we also had support from the World Animal Health Organization in support of this project, and I want to thank all of them. I equally want to thank the CPC and the team at the CPC and the Attorney General for the support they have given to us in getting to this point. I must confess, sir, that this is not the easiest of legislation. I must confess that it took a lot of work in being able to have this legislation, plus the entire suite of legislation on the SPS, to be harmonized with legislation globally and legislation across the region. And so therefore, I wish to thank the Attorney General and the team at the CPC for the excellent work they have done in getting us to this point. And I also want to thank, first of all, the CARICOM Secretariat, but equally the member states of CARICOM and the CARICOM Agricultural Ministerial Task Force for the Secretariat's bills, the model bills that we use in order for us to be able to reach this point. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central is absolutely correct. We can pass this bill, we can have an act or statute, but at the end of the day, if we don't have the regulations to drive it, sir, we would have just passed another piece of legislation. And therefore, it's very important, it's critical that we get the regulations in place to be able to support the execution of the statute, sir. So all in all, Mr. Speaker, I am indeed pleased that we can take Barbadians into a new year with the confidence that a full suite of SPS legislation will be laid in this Parliament, and with the confidence that Barbadians will now have new opportunities in trade globally, and equally give Barbadians the assurance as well that our animals and our food systems are protected, our biodiversity is secured as well, and that we will now look at new measures through which we will conduct the approach to agriculture, the approach to commerce, and the approach to setting up a single agency that would allow for us to be able to monitor, control, and execute all that is required under this legislation. This, I have to reinforce, sir, is only one piece of the legislation under the SPS measures. We still have to do the plant protection legislation. We still have to do the food safety legislation. And I do want, sir, to ask Barbadians to work with us, cooperate with us, and let us cut out the unnecessary noise that is going around. Oftentimes when people don't have anything to criticize, they create their own narrative, and equally they end up telling tales or resorting to, as I said earlier, the perfidious type of conduct that is not expected of us by a younger group of voters, because voters don't want to be misled, and they equally don't want to be deceived. And so, Mr. Speaker, I am happy that we are able to stay the course. We were able to get through very difficult times, sir. I wish to impress upon Barbadians that I personally will not ignore the fact that this country was shut down for 2 years. And I want to remind all Barbadians that we weren't living in normal times, and we have done extremely well to build back our tourism industry at the pace it has been built back at. To maintain our agricultural sector, we took our blows, but we maintained the sector. I can't think of one day, Mr. Speaker, when Barbadians couldn't get sweet potatoes or when they couldn't get food to eat. And this ministry really and truly has done an extremely good job in making sure we keep farmers going. With challenges up against climate change, sir, where crops were either flooded out or you couldn't get water, we were still able to feed this nation. And so therefore, the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Security has done an excellent job in making sure that Barbadians didn't have to riot or rob one another because they couldn't get access to food. So, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased. I want to thank my team at the ministry again, and I also want to thank my colleagues for the support they've given, and I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Question that this bill be read a second time. All those who are members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do now leave the chair and allow for this House to be resolved into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those who are members in favor, please say aye. Those against it, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is now in committee.
Mr. Chairman, this is a very long bill. We are seeking the House's permission to call in parts, clauses, and parts. So, Part 1, clauses 1 and 2.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Part 1, Clauses 1 and 2 do stand part.
The question is that Part 1, Clauses 1 and 2 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, say nay. He thinks the ayes have it.
Part 2, clauses 3 to 12.
Chair, I beg to move that Clauses 3 to 12, Part 2 do now stand part.
The question is that Part 2, Clauses 3 to 12 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 3, clauses 13 through 28.
Chair, I beg to move that Part 3, Clauses 13 through 28 do now stand part.
The question is Part 3, Clauses 13 to 28 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 4, clauses 29 through 32. 32.
Chair, I beg to move that Part 4, Clauses 29 to 32 do now stand part.
The question is that Part 4, Clauses 29 to 32 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 5, clauses 33 through 35.
Chair, I beg to move that Part 5, Clauses 33 to 35 do stand part.
The question is that Part 5, Clauses 33 to 35 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 6, clauses 36 through 51.
Chair, I beg to move that Part 6, Clauses 36 through 51 do stand part.
The question is that Part 6, Clauses 36 to 51 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 7, clauses 52 through 54.
Chair, I beg to move that Part 7, Clauses 52 through 54 do stand part.
The question is that Part 7, Clauses 52 through 54 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 8, clause 55.
Chair, I beg to move that Part 8, Clause 55 do stand part.
The question is that Part 8, Clause 55, stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 9, clauses 56 through 62.
Chair, I beg to move that Part 9, clauses 56 through 62 do stand part.
The question is that Part 9, clauses 56 through 62 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 10, clauses 63 through 74.
7-4.
Yes, please.
Chair, I beg to move that Part 10, clauses 63 through 74 do stand part.
The question is that Part 10, clauses 63 to 74 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 11, clauses 75 through 83.
83. Chair, I beg to move that Part 11, clauses 75 through 83 do stand part.
The question is that Part 11, clauses 75 through 83 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
First schedule.
Chair, I beg to move that first schedule be the schedule to the bill. Be the first schedule to the bill.
The question is that the first schedule will be the schedule to the bill. The first schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Second schedule.
Chair, I beg to move that the second schedule be the second schedule to the bill.
The question is that the second schedule be the second schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chair, I do move that you do now report to the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee.
The question is that I do now report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman of committees is reporting the passing of one bill in committee.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the third reading of this bill.
The question that this bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the Animal Health and Veterinary Public Health Act 2022.
The question is that this bill be passed and so cited. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited.
We committed, sir, of papers.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
You double take again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm commanded to lay the annual report of Hotels and Resorts Limited for the financial year ended March 31st, 2022.
We committed, sir, of government notices.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to give notice of a resolution to grant the sum of $76,086,403 from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2022-2023 as shown in supplementary estimates number 2, 2022 to 2023. I'm also giving notice of a resolution to grant the sum of $23,686,972 from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2022-2023 as shown in supplementary estimates number 3, 2022 to 23.
Mr. Speaker, we also go back to messages from Her Excellency the President.
Message from Her Excellency the President to the Honourable the House of Assembly. Her Excellency the President wishes to inform the Honourable the House of Assembly that she will be absent from the country during the period 20th December 2022 to 3rd January 2023 on vacation leave. Her Excellency further wishes to inform the Honourable the House of Assembly that in accordance with the provisions of Section 33 of the Constitution, the Very Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Douglas Gibson will perform the functions of the Office of the President for the period of Her Excellency's absence. Signed, President, State House, Barbados, 16th of December, 2022.
Revert to government business, sir.
Government business is resorted to.
And order number 8. In the name of the Honourable Leader of the House, to move that the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee to consider the grant of sums of money for the service of this island.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and that the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Order 8A, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, to move the passing of a resolution to grant the sum of $76,086,403 from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2022 to 2023 as shown in the supplementary estimates number 2, 2022 to 2023, which form the schedule to the resolution. Mr. Chairman, I should indicate at this stage that there are 2 supplementaries. We're going to remain in committee and deal with both of them before we. And we're dealing with supplementary number 2, which has a total amount of $66,086,403. Head 12, Parliament, in the amount of $156,370.
The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is a relatively simple request, as you would appreciate, given the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. We've had a pause with respect to the meeting of presiding officers and clerks in relation to parliaments within the context of the Commonwealth. These sums of money here is to ensure our Barbados' representation at the upcoming conference in Australia, and therefore we feel it's important that, as the clear signal that the economies are reopening globally, that we continue to ensure that Barbados, now being achieving Republican status, that it's critically important that not just that we are represented, but to the extent that we are now charting a new path, we want to be able to signal that with respect to our reform agenda, with respect to the new constitution, but that the Parliament obviously is modernizing to be able to take Barbados forward as we have been doing, sir, certainly for the past 4.5 years. So with those very few words, sir, I beg to move that head 12 stand part.
The question is that head 12 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 13, Prime Minister's Office, in the amount of $5,422,097, sir.
Mr.
The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. Again, the sums of money here represent the continued investment in training that this government has placed tremendous focus on. You would recall, sir, that when we came to office, there was a lack of significant investment in training for young people, or anybody really for that matter, for a significant period of time. And we utilized, as you would recall, sir, very early on, we went to the social partnership. We arranged with respect to being able to suspend the contributions that were being made into the severance fund, and we split that 50-50 between 50% between the unemployment fund and 50%, sir, between the training levy, with respect to being able to enhance and roll out an aggressive program for training across the country. As you know, sir, it was originally the National Training Initiative, but it was subsequently rebranded as the National Transformation Initiative, which has been doing significant work since inception to be able to expose Barbadians across the length and breadth of this country for the past 4 years. COVID required a slightly different focus because the training obviously then took place online. But since we have reopened this year, and I can attest to this because I attended a training session right at Milton Lynch, sir, that the National Training Initiative had put on. There was about 45 people or so that Saturday that received the communication, and I have been promoting it certainly within the context of my constituency. But these sums of money here, sir, because Barbadians will be aware, in addition to that, Barbadians will be aware that the Coursera platform, which really and truly, sir, is a model for allowing a lot of people who perhaps have experience but did not have the opportunity, sir, to be able to attend formal instruction, to be able to equip themselves and get certified, which is a critical step in allowing people not just to feel a sense of pride, but certainly to be able to enhance the opportunities for learning. And therefore, these sums of money here, sir, are being requested, not just in relation to getting the licenses with respect to the Coursera platform, which I must say is freely available to Barbadians on registration. Equally, you would recall, sir, that we also negotiated with the telecoms companies to not charge for the data usage because we understood the importance of being able to log on to, I think it's nti.training.gov.bb or .org.bb, I think is the name of the website, so that with the use of your telephone, sir, if that's all that you have, that you still can have access to the Coursera platform, which this government certainly has committed to, because we understand that in as much as we have had some significant downtime because of COVID-19, that it provides an opportunity for persons to enhance, to have access to training so that they can move from one level to another and to be able to enhance their circumstance. During the pandemic as well, the NTEI delivered some specific set of training to help the tourism sector. You recall, sir, that we had the Barbados Employment and Sustainability Transformation Program, the BEST program, which was designed specifically to help the mitigate or to reduce the economic fallout caused by COVID-19. The NTI played a significant role in the training aspect of that, along with not just the retention of employment under that program, but also part of it was to serve with respect to the digitization efforts of the attractions and hoteliers in relation to this. And so these monies are to give support for the licenses associated with the platform, the Coursera platform, and therefore it is critically important that this be able to continue as we move forward. The crisis management program, Mr. Speaker, as you know, the economy has almost, well, it's fully open, for sure. And we have seen a reduction with respect to the number of persons who are now dependent on that program. And therefore, the amount here with respect to $2 million, sir, in relation to that, we believe should be sufficient to take us to the end of the financial year. And the truth is, sir, that I know that for a number of persons out there, things are still a little rough, but we have seen more jobs opening up in the economy, people returning to work chair, and therefore we will continue to monitor the program, but we feel confident that as 2020, notwithstanding anything that may come upon us, sir, in 2023, that we are hopeful that persons will be able to through, again, the training that has been made available through the same NTI program, sir, that as jobs become available, and as you know, sir, that early in the new year, we're going to see, we just saw a couple of weeks ago, jobs being advertised with respect to the Sam Lars property in St. Philip's House, coincidentally, SPS, but no, seriously, Mr. Speaker, given the investment that we've made in helping people to retool and to retrain, and with job opportunities coming available again certainly in 2023, we are confident that the Adopt a Family program and others will be able to transition back with respect to the private sector, so that persons can pretty much get on with resuming things as normal. And therefore, these monies here, as being requested, to support the program to the remainder of the financial year. And we are confident that we should be able to do that. And so, with the right mix of training, sir, opportunities coming in, moving forward, we are confident that this investment in the training and the support that we've given with respect to giving people the $600 a month, sir, that those persons can now transition into the private sector to be able to find new work. And with those very few words, sir, I beg to move that Head 13 stand part.
Second that, sir.
The question is, Head 13 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 33, sir.
You can talk to me.
In the amount of $753,772.
Chair, the Ministry of Home Affairs and Information, sir, very important ministry. You would recall the minister himself had announced the 2 inquiries that were executed over the course of the summer. And this initial request here is to cover the cost of those inquiries for both the government industrial school as well as the prison in terms of this financial year. Whilst I know that a number of reforms obviously will be undertaken, coming out of the recommendation of that report, I'm confident that with other measures that the government is taking with respect to not just the training, sir, and I know that my very good neighbor here from St. Michael South is working with respect to the other reforms as it relates to how the social sector responds to families, sir, that I hope that we would not, that in the future, that we shall see a reduction in the population either of the government industrial school, but equally, sir, a reduction in the population of the prison. And I think whilst there is some valid concerns within the nature of the public in relation to some legacy laws, I know that the government has been working very aggressively to be able to address these matters from a legislative perspective, but certainly, sir, from a societal perspective, we have a responsibility, all of us, to be able to look out for one another and to make sure then that we are appropriate, that we give the necessary support as required. Under the meteorological department, sir, sir, and most of us may have recognized that we have been receiving, if persons have been sufficiently interested, we have been receiving very accurate and up-to-date sets of notifications coming out of the Met Office. And that is because this government, not just in relation to what we are asking for here, but certainly over the course of the last 2-3 years, we've made significant investment with respect to the upgrade of the radar facilities and systems. What we now have to make sure happens is once we saw the intensity of that with respect to when Hurricane Elsa passed, one of the areas that we now have to make sure is done is that the DEOs are able to not just have access to this type of information, but we need to develop a habit and a pattern, sir, with respect to ensuring that we can assess damage. I will speak to that in a different context, sir, as it relates to the statistics department and its role in relation to that at another time. But this provision here, sir, was intended to make sure that the Met Office was able to ensure that it can keep us all informed with respect to its operational needs over the course of the summer. We have now passed the hurricane season, and luckily we had, thankfully, I should say, we had no significant damage of any sort. We did have a increased frequency of flooding and rainfall that was we are not accustomed to, and therefore it is important that we are kept up to date. And I want to thank the Home Affairs Department, but certainly the Meteorological Department in relation to keeping the population informed and up to date. And I hope that in our communities that we are clearing the debris from in front of our house, sir, when we cut the grass, sir, and not waiting for somebody else to come and do it, sir, because at the end of the day, it is that disruption that tends to aggravate issues when you have very sharp, intense rain, and therefore it is important that we all understand the role that we have to play in relation to keeping the nation not just safe, but certainly to be able to mitigate any significant issues. And so, sir, with those very few words, I beg to move that Head 33 stand part.
The question is that Head 33 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 34, sir, Ministry of Finance, Economic Affairs and Investment, in the amount of $250,569.
Mr. Speaker, over the course of, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Over the course of the last few years, sir, as you would know, we have been embarked on a series of reforms. The sums of money under the general management relates to technical support services with respect to the monitoring of the work program, as well, sir, as it relates to the support for state-owned enterprise reform through the engagement of consulting services from Russell GMS Limited. Now, what I should make clear here, sir, is that, as you know, when we went into the pandemic in April of 2020, the government paused the third phase of the reform agenda that was intended to take place between 2020 and 2021. The pandemic certainly lasting 2 years, we paused those reforms, and therefore we needed to make sure that we recalibrated to, first of all, assess the new assumption of fiscal risk as it relates to state-owned enterprises and everything, as it relates to that. And therefore, this entity provided some additional support with respect to us being able to do that critical assessment, whilst being able to ensure then that we can set the timelines with respect to SOE reform moving into 2023. The next part of the supplementary, sir, is really related to the completion of the census, and I hope to be able to give the chamber a complete report early in the new year. As you know, the census was disrupted by the pandemic. It took longer. One, persons could not do the thing in the same way, and therefore, not just were enumerators, also getting ill with COVID. But you visit a house, sir, and there too are at some point or at the various isolation facilities. So it made it particularly difficult for an effective enumeration exercise in the way that you could just go into an area and know that everybody can be home that Sunday evening and do that. So the census was completed under very, very, very strained circumstances, and we hope that we were still able to collect some initial valuable information. Of course, not as rich as we had intended, but when the final report is completed, I know that we should be in a better place to be able to review what we could have done differently, given the circumstance. And therefore make sure that for the next iteration of any other national surveys that would have to be completed, that we set up a series of contingencies with respect to being able to execute such. But this sum of monies was related to the completion of the census, and therefore I beg to move, sir, that head 34 stand par.
The question is that head 34 stand par. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 35, Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, in the amount of $3,128,481.
Honourable member for St. Michael South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Sir, I also won't be very long. I want to begin by thanking the Minister of Finance, first of all, for giving us this support to be able to do this important work, and of course the Minister in the Ministry of Finance, who I must also thank for giving us this support and for the many conversations that we've had over the last many weeks and months. Mr. Chairman, sir, the monies that are being requested here are to support two very important agencies. We are supporting the welfare. We're supporting the welfare department, sir, and a program that was financed by the IDB that allowed us, sir, to service 250 very vulnerable families in Barbados, called the Strengthening Human and Social Development Program. So these funds for the Welfare Department are very important. They allow us to do the cash grants, they allow us to do food, rents, utilities, and other assistance like hearing aids and burials, and so on. For people who need the kind of support from the Welfare Department, that would be your constituents, sir, in St. Lucie, mine in St. Michael South, and most of our constituents, sir, who from time to time may find themselves in need of such support. And therefore, these funds would allow us, sir, to be able to meet the mandate of the government. I must say, though, as I speak very briefly that, there's been a lot of conversation around the Welfare Department, but I would want to share with you, sir, very quickly some of the things that we were able to achieve over the last few months. I must tell you, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the Welfare Department has done significant work in the last few months, since April, $1.2 million monthly on average in rent for 236 tenants, sir. 23.8 million spent on cash grants, helping 6,530 persons. Food received by 5,056 persons, and educational assistance for 1,976 persons, and utility payments for 357. So over the course of the last year, the Welfare Department has done significant service to Barbadians who are in need of assistance. I want to commend them, sir, for their work. I want to commend them for the changes that I know are already occurring in the Welfare Department, and I look forward to what we're going to be able to do going forward, sir. So these funds would allow us to meet our mandate and to deliver to the people of Barbados until the end of the year. We're also requesting here some funds, sir, that would allow us to satisfy our responsibilities to the elderly persons who travel on the Transport Board bus vehicles, the Transport Board vehicles, primarily the buses. And the funds here would allow us, sir, to pay our part, sir, to allow our elderly persons to be able to continue to commute for free. And this is important, sir. In fact, it is not a behavior, it is not a policy seen in many other countries, not to the extent that we have been able to do it. Many other persons have told me that beyond moving from place to visit families or still to work, it is a kind of recreation, sir, a kind of a setting that allows them to relax and enjoy their older years, sir. So this grant from the Welfare Department will be able to allow them to continue to commute on the vehicles, sir. In relation to the Strengthening Human and Social Development Program, some of these funds, sir, as I said earlier, we have a relationship with the IDB that was $20 million. The program originally was to begin in 2015, signed in 2016, but it really got going under the Honourable Member for St. Thomas around 2019. And her leadership brought that program, sir, to the fore, and we've been able to help 250 of the most vulnerable families in Barbados, sir. And these funds, sir, would allow us to be able to do a very important part of the program. One of the things that many Barbadians who are in need of help also need to have is actually work experience. And a large part of these monies will go toward the temporary employment program, which is at the end of all the pillars, all this training, all this servicing, to actually have employment, to be able to say that you've actually worked and have that very important job experience that becomes critical, sir, when you're trying to find a job. And then very quickly and lastly, sir, there were a few pillars under this Strengthening Human and Social Development Program. They were able, under education, to assess and certify 150 persons. So we have 150 people who are now certified as a result of this. 32 would have received literacy and numeracy training. 375 access educational assistance, sir. In health, 342 persons received health care services, inclusive of prostate examinations and so on, sir. So this program has actually helped in real ways, because we had a discussion at Cabinet, the DPM, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Southeast, had asked me a question in relation to practical things. What are we doing to really help people on a day-to-day basis? And that has to be the concern of the government all the time. And these, sir, are practical things that we have been doing in the ministry to help poor people, sir, and to make sure that the average Barbadian is able to live, sir, in very difficult times. 413 persons benefited from the temporary employment program. And while that program was initially financed by ADB, I must say, sir, that these programs, everything ends today. But because of the government, persons who would be going home today just before Christmas would have their employment cut today and now have the opportunity to work past Christmas and into the new year because this government has seen it fit to support persons, sir. So instead of going home, this government has ensured that people could live for Christmas. Therefore, sir, this is what these funds are intended to do. I look forward to working with the staff in both the ministry, the staff in both strengthening as well as welfare, and all the staff in the ministry, sir, and my continued excellent relationship with the minister in the Ministry of Finance to be able to ensure that we are able to service the persons who need help the most. With these few words, sir, I ask that Head 35 stand part.
The question is that Head 35 stand part. All honourable members in favour, you say aye. Honourable members against, you say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 81, sir. Ministry of Transport, Works and Water Resources in the amount of $20,880,000.
Honourable member for St. Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Head 81, in respect of the 2.1 million, which is being requested to be able to facilitate what we have referred to initially as the Ash Worker Program, but which later became the National Cleanup Program, a national beautification of the country, a cleanup of the country over the course of the last few years. This program arose out of the need to address the issues of ash across the country, across the island. We've seen a dramatic cleanup of not only the gullies, but the main roads within the internal constituencies. We've seen a general improvement, sir. I want to take the opportunity, again, to just really thank the teams that have been working across the country to help us in this effort, those who have been working with them to be able to accomplish what I consider a magnitude task at the outset, but one which now has been able to find that balance so that we're able to deploy the teams across constituencies to clean. Sir, I'm sure you're well aware that they are undertaking not just the debushing, but they're also addressing the issue of the drains. In some cases, some of the teams have been cutting trees across the country, those which are obviously on the highways. Some of them have been integrated into things like the painting shops, painting the roads at night, doing the road markings. There have even been some of the persons who came in under the original Ash Workers Program who have also now been engaged within the administrative aspects of the ministry, because some of them had a number of skills that were able to help them to transition into other areas. We have made it clear that, this program was intended to just be for a short period to address ash, but this government saw the need to be able to expand it at the time. We have always indicated that the program will have to come to an end, but we're not ending the program unceremoniously, sir. We've said on previous occasions that our intention is to help a number of these workers. There are close to 1,500 workers in the program, and it is our intention to ensure that we're able to assist them with the transition to other forms of employment. Some of them will be retained by the ministry. There are various teams that obviously have been doing exceptionally well, and we believe that they have to be given the opportunity to now assist us in carrying out further works within the ministry. We have also been working with the other ministries to be able to see how we can encourage persons to transition to, for instance, agriculture, and also the construction gateway programs. A number of them have already indicated by way of forms that would have been circulated to them their intention to participate in training programs that would allow them to improve their existing skill set, but also in some cases to learn an additional skill as well. So again, I want to make it clear and to write on the sentiments of others who have spoken before me that not only are we making sure that people have a good Christmas, but when it comes to being able to make difficult decisions, this administration is prepared to allow people to transition and not to leave them hanging. I can say to you, sir, that these monies will allow us to make sure that we cover the national insurance on behalf of the worker. It also allows us to cover the contribution by the government, which is equally important. So when the program does in fact come to an end, those workers will still have the benefit of the unemployment if they have not already transitioned. In other words, we are not leaving people out to dry. And I think that is very important, sir, for persons to understand. We have also asked for assistance through a communications specialist, Hay Communications, to be able to help us to assist those persons within the program to identify the areas that they may want to continue to train in. We have identified that we have some trouble workers as well who create some problems across communities, and I know the communications company and others have determined that they will work with those persons. A number of them come with their own social issues, and we have determined that we are not going to just cut off anybody's head or their source of income, but we are prepared as a ministry and as a government to certainly work with a number of those programs in order to ensure that they are directed accordingly for gainful employment. Many of them may decide that they want to apply for a trust loan. That guidance will be given. If they want to, sir, engage in the private sector, the communications team is there to work with them to be able to ready them for interviews, to be able to prepare them to make that transition for other job opportunities. And of course, if they wish to be self-employed, those avenues will also be made available to them as well. So, sir, the 2.1 million is really to get us to the end of January, to allow us to be able to have the program extended and to allow us to continue to make the transition. The construction gateway programs, I believe, will start in January. We've already had a number of persons transition to Gabion construction. As you know, there's lots of work that is coming up in relation to the Scotland district, and so we have tried to improve the skill set of a number of the workers so that they can participate in the upcoming boom within the road construction area as well. The second area, Mr. Chair, relates to 17.78 million, which is being requested to pay for work on the IDB road project. I don't think it is any mystery in terms of the road works that have been ongoing in the country. Perhaps, if anything, the criticism constantly comes that we need to get the work program accelerated a little faster, but that is because so many of the roads are bad. And they have been bad for a long time, Mr. Chair, and I see you nodding your head because you have certainly been at the forefront of requesting attention from the ministry to be able to help to improve the road conditions in the parish of St. Lucie. And again, I can give you the assurance that we cannot get to every single road at the time that everybody would like, but in this particular project with the IDB, we have been able to accelerate a road program according to the timelines provided to us by the respective contractors to be able to start a number of those road works across the country. And that is obviously complementing the Scotland District Rehabilitation Project. It is complementing the CAF program as well, which will allow us to do a number of the more residential roads across communities, but also main arteries across the country as well. Just to mention, Mr. Chair, that these monies will help us to pay the contractors. These projects cannot be done without, obviously, the payment to the engineers, to the payment to the design teams, to the contractors, the road builders who work on these projects. And therefore, while we have accessed the financing through the IDB, we have to ensure that we are paying the persons to be able to complete the various projects. This project dates back to 2016. It would have preceded us coming to office. It had been long in coming, negotiated, I think, back in 2012. It took a long time before the actual project was executed. So for those naysayers who are saying we are taking long, I want to give the assurance that once we came to office, we have been still working diligently to tie up all of the loose ends to be able to get these projects completed. And a number of the roads, initially there were sample roads, but there are a number of the wider roads, the global roads as they referred to, that are in the process of either being completed or have already been completed. And so over the course of I think they're holding off during the Christmas period because we recognize the issues of dust intrusion into households. People are getting their households ready for Christmas and for the new year, and we appreciate that. Obviously, we will have to pause over the Christmas period as well to allow for persons to enjoy the holiday period. So, sir, that is what that particular sum of money relates to. The last area relates to the TAP program. It is a subsidy to the Transport Board in the sum of $1 million. Again, I'm sure, like other colleagues, the constant calls have come from TAP operators requesting the funds for the works that they have been engaged to do to assist government in being able to provide public transportation across the country. One of the biggest challenges we've been facing is concerns relating to discrepancies sometimes from the concessionary ridership in relation to the amounts being claimed by some of the operators, and that is an ongoing investigation. It's no mystery to anybody, but there are some people who will try to cheat the system, and therefore we've had to put certain measures in place to be able to address that. Fortunately, with the introduction of the cashless system very shortly, I believe that will alleviate some of the challenges that we are facing, because we will have better accountability, in particular for the concessionary ridership, and that would allow us to have a better tracking mechanism to be able to make payments to the TAP operators. So, sir, those are the three areas under this particular head, and therefore I beg to move that this head 81 do now stand part.
The question is that head 81 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, you say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 82, sir. Ministry of Environment, National Beautification, and Blue and Green Economy, in the amount of $4,452,600.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. You would recall, sir, in the early part of 2020, we came to the Chamber to start this process with respect to providing the financing for the roll-out bins, which I believe by now every Barbadian household should have received their black bin as well as their blue one. And we had agreed to be able to finance the rollout of that project, that national project, over a 3 fiscal years. This payment was made earlier this year in, I think, end of April, early March, and therefore we are just bringing to account to the Chamber what was done to be able to complete that specific process. I know that Barbadians, certainly in the context of the improvement with respect to the collection of garbage in the country, that it has significantly improved, Chair, from what we know, from when we came to office, sir, when you had to keep food, sir, in your fridge for 3 and 4 weeks because you simply did not know when the trucks would arrive. And there still have been a few small issues from time to time, as one would appreciate. I think the people of this country can have great pride knowing that we came to office, we found some significant issues, we set about resolving those issues, and we have now improved significantly, sir, with respect to where we were, and we want to be able to look forward to the Ministry of Environment rolling out a comprehensive recycling program, certainly, sir, early in the new year. From my own perspective, sir, I can say that I have seen significant improvement in my constituency. There were 2 specific areas, sir, in Wotton that the SSA, but 3 areas. There were 2 skips and an area where people would just put garbage, and you would appreciate, sir, the amount of rats that used to congregate, sir, and live in that space, because once you had that type of communal garbage, then you would appreciate that the unsightly nature with respect to the pileup of garbage, and certainly in those circumstances that I described, sir, whilst for most of us in the rest of the country, we could keep the garbage in our fridge, you would imagine, sir, in areas like Wotton, where you had those communal garbage, sir, facilities, that we've had prolonged food outside in the heat, sir, for such a long time, you would understand the state of the place. And it is something that you should really, no human being, sir, should ever become accustomed. I am pleased, sir, that we have been able to do this, because in those spaces now, sir, because each unit in Wotton now, sir, has their own bin, then there's no need for the communal garbage. We also used to have the problem, sir, of people leaving. Again, people didn't want to keep the garbage at them. People used to leave where they were and come into water and dump the garbage, sir. And I'm proud to say, sir, that that is no more. And therefore, this piece of money here, sir, to be able to complete this national project has not just beautified Barbados and improved the services, but I believe that for the residents of Watton, sir, it has brought a peace of mind with respect to the management of the garbage service. I can say that obviously, sir, if there's any other persons out there now who are still trying to attempt to come and dump their garbage in areas like Watton, then I would urge certainly the Ministry of Health and certainly the Ministry of Environment to be able to track these people down, because it would just be, sir, as completely inappropriate and indecent to continue to do these things to ordinary citizens who live in this country. I know that if the Honourable Minister was here, he would probably introduce into the conversation some aspect of biodiversity and the like. But the reality is, sir, that how we recycle, sir, that too is an opportunity for ordinary Barbadians to be able to participate in. And therefore, when we speak about a national recycling program, I believe that that too can unlock opportunities for young people to be able to earn a living and to be able to support their family, sir. And that's something that I certainly look forward to us being able to do. So this completes the financing of that specific part of the program. I believe every Barbadian should have their bin and their blue bin, and I hope that the ministry will be able to embark on a very aggressive communications program early in the new year in order to make sure that our recycling component now, that we reduce the amount of garbage that's going into the landfill, and we're able then to separate and to be able to manage our waste in a sustainable way. And with those very few words, sir, I beg to move that Head 82 stand part.
The question is that Head 82 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 83, sir. Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nutritional Security in the amount of $5,793,063.
Honourable Member for St. Philip South.
Mr. Chairman, I rise first of all to thank the Minister of Finance and the Minister in the Ministry of Finance for providing us with this supplementary support to assist us at the BAMC to be able to carry out our work. We have targeted a start of crop for February of next year, which meant that we had to invest a significant amount of money in the factory. It clearly meant that we had to bring out staff to work as well. And of course, there are plans to increase our molasses production for our rum industry would mean increased storage capacity. And so, Mr. Chairman, these funds are going to be used to help us to carry out the work at the BAMC and to reach our targets so that we can equally deliver for Barbados and the sugar industry. We do know that there's a transitioning program that is taking place, which is well on the way, and that is to be presented to Cabinet shortly. And once we are finished with the transitioning program, the BAMC will then be able to hold its own and transition to a privately owned entity. So with those few words, sir, I beg to move that Head 83 do stand part.
The question is that Head 83 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 86, sir. Ministry of Health and Wellness in the amount of $17,139,406.
Honourable member for St. Philip North.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to be able to stand here and give account to the taxpayers of Barbados on what we're doing with these monies within the Ministry of Health. And I'll get right into it. We've asked for supplementaries, for instance, for the Ghanaian nurses. We all know that Ghanaian nurses were introduced into the island after an MOU was signed with the Ghanaian government during the COVID season, but despite the fact that COVID is now hopefully dying down, there's still need for nurses. There's an international paucity of nurses within the world. Every island, every country is affected, and Barbados is no exception. Although we're working expeditiously to get the students out, there is still need to provide nursing care within the Ministry of Health, which would include a geriatric hospital and polyclinic setting. So that is part of the supplementary. Apart from that, we have to account for the travel expenses you see on the supplementary. We know that that has been a conversation within the island with respect to the spending of the government with travel, but I'm happy to say that these were necessary travels that were brought upon us. I had the opportunity to attend one, but among the three that we're asking for, we had 2 trips to Geneva, 2 groups, which involved ministerial as well as high-level staffing of the Ministry of Health. So we needed funding. These meetings included the World Health Assembly, which discussed health matters, which included COVID, childhood obesity, etc. And I had the opportunity to attend another in Geneva where we discussed the NCDs in terms of front-of-package labeling. So this was absolutely necessary for the way forward in Barbados, considering that the huge NCD fight that we are up against. This supplementary also includes the stipend for nursing students, student nurses. As you're well aware, this was discontinued several years ago. Really don't know the reasons why. But what the public may not know, that student nurses also bear quite a brunt of the workload in the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, for instance, where they do their training. But it's not only a matter of standing up and looking, they're expected to learn by changing patients, changing beds. So their work is very important. We did not only reintroduce it, but we added a further $100 to every level of the nursing care. So I'm sure the nurses would be happy to know that. There's also a funding request to supplement the Barbados National Registry. The Barbados National Registry is where statistics are collected with respect to stroke, heart attacks, cancer, and they provide the data which we need to move forward the health policy. In other words, without data, we cannot form health policy in terms of how we treat patients, how we get the funding, and we have been short on payment because we did not get the requisite funding at the time, so we're asking for a supplementary to help facilitate their paying of their staff who are on contract. Without that supplementary, they will be forced to send home employees. Then there is the Barbados Diabetes Association, which I'm becoming very familiar with. They have an important role in our society. They are responsible for looking after diabetic patients, but it goes a little beyond that. Right now, they're seeing public as well as private patients. They have referrals from the polyclinic, and they're not only sit and talk to patients about diet, but they look after eye care in terms of screening. They look after foot care. They have cardiac screening at the Diabetes Foundation in Warrens, and that money will help with their functioning. They're also under contractual arrangement, so we're obligated to provide it. I must speak about the Caribbean Public Health Agency. We are also asking for supplementary for this. Members of the parliamentary party may not be aware, or they may be, that CARFA has an important role in our healthcare system. They were absolutely important during the COVID pandemic when it was first introduced, monitoring, for instance, cruise ships, and if members came on these cruise ships with COVID, they assist with immunizations, vector control, climate change. So we need to get that money out to them. I'm pleased to say that I had the opportunity to give some remarks at the renaming of the Glebe Polyclinic. This is one of the supplementary requests. It was renamed to the Freddie Miller Polyclinic, and we needed the funding for that renaming. We all know the important role he played in health, which included sanitary services, as well as social services like daycare centers, handicraft, that kind of thing. So it's well deserving, and that money will go towards that. The psychiatric hospital, as well as the geriatric hospital, we're asking for supplements to provide their food costs. We all know that these facilities require, like everybody else, well-balanced diets to keep them healthy, really. And the cost of food, as we all know, have gone up, and they're also requesting more money for medical supplies because the costs for shipments and so on for medication has increased the normal costs for these supplies. Travel, we spoke about the travel allowance already. There's also supplementary to help with these SIDS. This is the Small Island Development States High-Level Technical Meeting, which is happening on the 17th and 18th of January, and this is where, and we've been meeting since October on this. This is where we bring the NCDs and mental health to the fore. It's a partnership between WHO, PAHO, as well as the government of Barbados. PAHO is doing WHO the majority of the funding, but we need funding with respect to securing the facility where the conference will be held, providing meals. We have a reception for the members that will come, to provide ground transportation, as well as there's a walking tour plan, which is very exciting. So we're looking at some 170 roughly members coming from the international arena into Barbados, but it's also a hybrid meeting where some will be joining online, but the majority will be in Barbados. The final thing I want to talk about really is the issue of hazard pay, which the honourable member who presented before me was careful to tell me to remind the members of the public and the medical staffing and the people that assisted in COVID with transport of COVID patients and the lab technicians who assisted there, that monies will be coming and they will be paid their hazard allowance. So I'm happy to present that. That is a short briefing, Mr. Chair, and it is at this point and at this juncture that I ask the beg to move that Head 86 stand part. Thank you.
The question is that Head 86 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. He thinks the ayes have it.
Head 87, Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, the amount of $6,262,452.
Honourable Member for St. Philip West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise with gratitude to the Ministry of Finance for affording this supplementary to the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training to cover three things in particular. One, our primary education domestic program, our tertiary education grants, and three, our school meals department. Let me start with our school meals department, Mr. Chairman. In the estimates for 2022-2023, you would recall that at the time when those estimates were prepared, our children had not yet gone back to school in full face-to-face. As a result, some of the monies that were allocated at that time were set not at the levels as if we were back to full face-to-face. As you know, the school meals department has now gone back full face-to-face. We are at 98 schools, working from 6 centers, and we are serving at full capacity about 24,000. And so the shortfall at the time, sir, for this, the estimates for this financial year did not adequately provide for us to be able to operate at that level, at that full capacity level where we are now. In addition, you will recall, sir, that there was a lunch and learn program that was implemented by this government called the Summer Nutrition Program, the SUN program, in the summer of 2022. At the time that the estimates for our ministry was set again for this financial year, that program had not been contemplated, and therefore some of the money that we're asking in this supplementary will go to help cover the costs for that summer nutrition program. We were at that time, we are happy to say that in that program, we had anticipated, we had a registration at the time, sir, of, I'm pulling the specifics of the document, sir. The registration for that program was in the 4,000s. Just over 4,200, but then we found that the demand for meals on a daily basis were just over 6,700. And then, sir, we found ourselves catering to just over 8,800 actual meals on any given day during the summer program, throughout the summer program. And so the monies that we are asking for under the school meals program would, one, supplement the shortfall now that we're back to full face-to-face, and two, help to provide resources that will serve the work we did in the summer program. And as you know, there were several children, several families who benefited from that program. That program was not only open to those students who would normally get school meals at primary schools and at some of the secondary schools, but it also catered to any student age, a child of school age, who wanted to access the meals from the school meals department during the summer program, the summer nutrition program. That program, we did several evaluations from the students. We also had observations. We also kept reports of how many students actually access meals. And the general feedback was that it was a successful program. And we are happy that we were able to assist so many students at that time and so many families, some of whom came simply because others were coming. Some were actually in need of the program, and some came because it was convenient for the families. So that is one part of the supplementary. The other part of the supplementary, sir, goes towards grants for tertiary education. You may recall that in 2021, it was the Human Nutrition and Dietetics program that was introduced at the University of the West Indies. At that time, that program was not part of the compact of programs for which the government pays. It was in response, certainly, to the fact that not only in Barbados, but across the region, there are a number of persons suffering from NCDs, non-communicable diseases, and in fact that we needed to look at the nutrition side of dealing with diabetes and other non-communicable diseases, and therefore that program was conceptualized with a view to helping us to respond to that. Sir, you will also know that across government, we have only about 12 persons, professionals employed now in nutrition and dietetics. From the survey that was done and the response that came from the Ministry of Health and Wellness and others, we really ideally need 35. We are therefore short 12 that we have versus the 35 that we need. And so we know that the government's investment in those students who are following that human nutrition and dietetics program at the University of the West Indies, that it will be money well spent, sir, and that those persons will be able to come and service not only the public sector, but the private sector as we seek to expand our response to effectively address the issue of non-communicable diseases. So that second part of the supplementary is for those grants to those students. And I have to say at this point, there are a number of students we know in that program who have spoken at some of the Speaks programs that this government has been hosting, our Prime Minister has been hosting, along with all of our other members of Parliament across Barbados. We knew of those students who were actually registered for the program and are covered under this supplementary. What came to our attention, however, is that there were a number of students who were following the classes, but they were not officially registered. And we know that those are some of the students who also will need some assistance. So while this supplementary will cover the ones which the University of the West Indies told us were actually registered, we recognize that there are some other students who may also need some assistance, and we are exploring how best we may be able to address that matter. The third area for which this supplementary will contribute is that to our education, our domestic program. There was an assessment that was done on a number of our schools, which you know, sir, they serve also as hurricane shelters. And we discovered that a number of those shelters needed additional resources, whether it came to generators, whether it came to shutters, whether it came to other parts of the infrastructure or equipment that needed to be on hand in order for those schools to be able to function effectively either as Category 1 or Category 2 centers. And so the third aspect for which this supplementary will be required is to help us boost the resources at our various centers. And sir, it is with these few words that I beg to move that Head 87 stand part.
The question is that Head 87 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 92, sir. Ministry of Energy and Business Development in the amount of $269,890.
Honorable member for Christchurch, East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. The request here appears small, sir, but it is particularly significant. And it's significant because this government, sir, as you remember, when under the previous member for St. Michael North, when he came to this chamber to pass those 14 pieces of legislation in December of 2018, sir, to be able to, in a sense, right-size, sir, our entire business structure in this country. And as you know, sir, the Corporate Affairs and Intellectual Property Office has been undergoing a specific set of reforms and modernization, but also, sir, the International Business Unit in relation to being able to cover off our compliance issues as it relates to international regulations. And so over the course of the last few years, notwithstanding the pandemic, we have mounted a very strong response with respect and collaborative response across government to be able to facilitate greater cooperation amongst the regulatory bodies in the country. And this compliance unit now, sir, is to ensure that we can, as we've done with respect to the economic substance and passing that bill in this chamber, that as we implement the requirements under that we have the capacity to be able to monitor it and to be able to report through the exchange, the competent authority, which is really the Revenue Authority, in relation to the global exchange, automatic exchange of information framework that has been set up globally. So it is a small sum, but it is important as we continue not just to get off the grey list and the black list and all the other lists that they have out there, sir, to be able to ensure that when people either start something new in Barbados or is growing and getting in different spaces, or we have new foreign investment coming into the country, that in our entire regulatory framework certainly will be up to speed, which we believe that we must use regulation as a competitive tool And therefore, this specific compliance unit is to be able to help build up and enhance what we've done so far. So with those very few words, sir, I beg to move that Head 92 stand part.
The question is that Head 92 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 93, sir. Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance in the amount of $7,577,753.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. Very quickly, and you will be reasonably familiar, sir, with the Ministry of Housing. The sums of monies here relate to the completion with respect to assets under construction for the East-West project for the remainder of the financial year. I believe if persons have been passing through the Haggett Hall area and other parts of Barbados, I know in Scotts Gap, there's one of the, in Bradensill, one of the completed houses in relation to the East-West project. And therefore, as this is intended to be rolled out and ramped up, this sum of money is intended to be able to cover, under the housing planning unit, the specific engagement between the government of Barbados and the East-West project. With respect to the NHC, similarly, sir, the sums of monies here relate to government being able to advance monies with respect to the payment of for operational purposes, for continued support under not just the Hurricane Elsa projects, but other operational measures there, and as well as a specific component there that they are undertaking with respect to East-West in terms of the contractual payments with respect to the erection of the 150 steel frame houses, which we hope will accelerate and can be completed within short order in order to bring that specific aspect to completion, such that as the government then moves from that specific phase in response to Hurricane Elsa, that we can then say to Barbadians that these are viable options for future housing projects, and therefore be able to unlock the resources that we do have across the credit union as well as the banking system to be able to enhance that. And so, sir, with those very few words, I beg to move that Head 93 stand part.
The question is that Head 93 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, that brings us to the end of that first supplementary. We now move on to the second one, which is Order 8B. In the name of the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, to move the passing of a resolution to grant the sum of $23,686,972 from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2022 to 2023 as shown in the supplementary estimates number 3, 2022 to 2023, which form the schedule to the resolution. At 13, Prime Minister's Office, in the amount of $1,718,031.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is a matter that has been long outstanding in relation to the Urban Development Commission. As you know, sir, the government supports the subsidy with respect to the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act. And this is a matter that we had intended to complete certainly in 2020, but because of the circumstances of COVID-19, we had to pause with respect to that and focus on the social protection measures. But we believe that it is time now, as we are emerging to normality, that we be able to facilitate these subsidies. There are some 100 persons who the applications are complete. All that's required now for us to be able is for government to support those persons to have the title with respect to their land that's transferred under the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act. And therefore, this we feel will not just be a good Christmas present for those persons who will be notified, obviously, with respect to the process to be completed, but would allow them certainly in the new year, sir, to be able to move forward with greater confidence that they certainly will own a piece of the rock in Barbados, and that obviously this government, notwithstanding the tremendous circumstances, have found the resources to be able to help bring this process to a conclusion so that these families can rest assured of being able to pass some assets on, sorry, from one generation to the next. And with those very few words, sir, I beg to move that Head 13 stand part.
The question is that Head 13 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 15, sir, Cabinet Office, in the amount of $1,311,730.
Honourable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. Sorry, Chair. So the request here at the Cabinet Office there is to facilitate the remainder of payments with respect to the humanitarian awards, the second ceremony that was just completed. We're also making a small contribution, sir, to Belize and Guyana as it relates to their disaster in response, to the floodings, the floods that took place in those countries earlier this year. Whilst it's a small contribution, sir, we believe that as neighbors, we must be able to help as best we can, given what we can afford, and therefore these small measures of support, we think will show Barbados' commitment, sir, with respect to being able to help. And as the old adage goes, sir, every little helps, and therefore we feel confident that we stand by our CARICOM brothers and sisters, even at their time of need. So these are to bring that to account, and therefore I beg to move, sir, that Head 15 stand part.
The question is that Head 15 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 27, sir, Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, in the amount of $385,100.
Honourable member for Christchurch East Central.
Yes, very much, Chair. Thank you very much. The matter before the Chamber under this specific head, as you know, sir, the Barbados government owns Hilton, the Hilton Hotel, but it is managed under Needham's Point Holdings Limited, obviously managed by Hilton Worldwide. During the pandemic, sir, as you know, with the cessation of international flights, the Needham's Point as an entity in the hotel obviously was significantly impacted, as were all the other hotels and attractions across the country. However, these specific sums here related to the renegotiation of the contract as it relates to the people of Barbados' participation with respect to ownership and the structure of that ownership in relation to Hilton. And therefore, whilst it came at a time where Needham's Point Holdings did not have the capacity, given that the significant fall off with respect to revenues, obviously did not afford it the opportunity to be able to do this. But this still had to be done as we were coming up to renegotiating the contract as it relates to Hilton. There's been some recovery, obviously, clearly this year in a very strong way, but obviously this was initiated before, and therefore we wanted to make sure that we are able to bring this to fruition in order to settle that matter. I am sure that at some point, the people will be advised with respect to the conclusion of the said negotiations and what will take place moving forward, but these sums were to ensure that the best interests of Barbadians moving forward, given the investment that the people have put into the property, as well as the other infrastructural investments and social infrastructural investments across the country, that we believe that the best value for money should be had with respect to the negotiation of said contract. And so with those very few words, sir, I beg to move to Head 27, stand part.
The question is that head 27 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 33, sir. Ministry of Home Affairs and Information in the amount of $3,718,717.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. The bulk of this specific request from Home Affairs relates to the prison, sir, and the extent to which not just the maintenance of property, as you would appreciate, sir, irrespective of the fact that all of us face increased light bills, the really and truly, sir, the prison can't really turn off electricity like some of us would, because as you would appreciate, the prison is actually a very highly technologically driven facility, and therefore part of the request here is to make sure then that not just the maintenance of property but the operational needs of the facility can be supported, as you would appreciate, sir, in the context of national security, that we need to make sure that that is covered. In relation to the other areas, in relation to the National Emergency, the Department, sorry, of Emergency Management, again, utilities continue to be a feature, and it's something that we've seen happening across, obviously, as you appreciate, sir, across departments of government as the electricity prices have gone up. We have seen an increase in demand with respect to payments, requests for payments for specifically electricity across the government. In terms of the immigration department, sir, overtime payments is what is being requested, with the sums of monies being asked for under both personal involvements and other operating expenses in relation to the immigration department, and under general management, again, the payment of utilities with respect to the facilities that house the Ministry of Home Affairs and Information. And this is their best estimate with respect to what will be required for the remainder of the fiscal year. And so, sir, with those very few words, I beg to move that head 33 stand part.
The question is that head 33 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 35, sir. Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs in the amount of $8,995,261.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. The honourable member for St. Michael South gave a comprehensive presentation in the earlier resolution. These monies is to further augment the work of the Welfare Department, as well as the Strengthening Human and Social Development Program. And therefore, whilst we continue to give additional resources as required, it is important that certainly as the reforms continue, but certainly we are able to create an environment where we can move persons into the work environment and to be able to respond certainly to the needs of families in a much more wholesome way. And so, sir, the ask here is to be able to support the work of the department, certainly the Welfare Department and that specific program, which has been critical. We also bring into account, sir, the monies that the IDB will reimburse the government with respect to the execution of the program over the last six months. And therefore, with those very few words, sir, I beg to move that head 35 stand part.
The question is that head 35 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 50, sir, Post Office in the amount of $740,933.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Yes, sir. The Post Office, again, sir, as I mentioned earlier, the request is to cover utility bills in particular the electricity bills as it relates to the operation of the Postal Service. And therefore, as I indicated earlier, we've seen additional requests, as everybody in Barbados would have experienced, for departments being able to cover their utility costs. And so the post office is no different, sir. If plenty post offices operating right across the length and breadth of this country, continuing to provide human service to the people of Barbados, and I know that they'll be even busier over the course of the next few days, delivering, sir, all of your mail and my mail, sir, to persons. And with those very few words, sir, I beg to move that Head 50 stand part.
Question is that Head 50 stand part. All honourable members in favor, say aye.
Oh, aye.
All honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 83, sir. Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nutritional Security in the amount of $2 million.
Thank you very much, Chair. As I gave my speech earlier and I spoke to the rising cost of living in the country, sir, the public will be aware that the government took a number of measures earlier in the year to be able to help ease the squeeze, so to speak, sir, with respect to cost of living. This particular matter under the Ministry of Agriculture, this occurred last year, if my memory serves me correctly, and we have provided support, price stability support for the agricultural sector with respect to the provision of feeds to ensure that prices within certainly the livestock space, that those can be contained certainly over the 4-month period, which I believe ends in January. And therefore, this is an additional measure that the government undertook to be able to help support the overall pricing support mechanisms, which are currently due to come to an end in January. During the next month, we shall be reviewing to determine whether or not anything needs to be extended in relation to that, given where revenues are, where expenditures are, and the financing with respect to that. And therefore, we hope that as we stood last year, anticipating a different type of year for 2022, I really do hope, sir, that we are in a position to be able to help see greater stability right across the economy, such that things can return to normality. And so this price stability support has been critical to the local animal feed sector, and therefore, with those very few words, sir, I beg to move to Head 83 stand part.
Question is that Head 83 stand part. All honourable members in favor, please say aye. Honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 92, sir. Ministry of Energy and Business Development in the amount of $317,200.
Honourable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Ministry of Energy and Business Development, sir, as I was speaking on the other resolution just a few minutes ago, that was related to IBU. This is now related to KIPO, sir. As you know, again, the reforms that we undertook in December of 2018, KIPO has undergone quite a bit of modernization with respect to its systems. It now has a responsibility, sir, for the development of the beneficial ownership, the register of beneficial ownership, as well as playing a much more active role with respect to the regulatory environment as it relates to business operating in Barbados. And therefore, the sum of monies here is referred to as the surge force by the Honourable Minister, which is intended to be able to address the backlog of issues in relation to the non-compliance with respect to businesses either filing their annual returns or the other regulatory matters in relation to being able for Barbados to report that its business environment is compliant, so that we can get off the FATF, sir, OECD, EU, all of those lists that have been developed globally to be able to help us to be able to regularize the business framework. We've done significant work already. This department will know with respect to phase 2 of its implementation of modernization effort. This will be a critical part of being able to create a much easier platform with respect to not just filings, but their capacity to monitor, so that the reporting with respect to beneficial ownership and other issues in relation to the conduct of business in Barbados is done in an open and transparent manner. And so with those very few words, sir, I beg to move that Head 92 stand part.
And second.
Question is that Head 92 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 93, sir. Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance in the amount of $4,500,000.
Honorable member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. The National Housing Corporation has undertaken, sir, a significant program, not just of electrical upgrades, but also the upgrades of sewage infrastructure across the estates across the country. These monies here is to take them to the end of the financial year with respect to being able to accelerate the completion of a number of units across Barbados, 1.5 million with respect to the electrical component, and 1 million with respect to the sewage infrastructure, to be able to ensure that the proper management and operation of these critical infrastructure for thousands of Barbadian families, that they can have a semblance of a better standard with respect to not just the transmission of electricity into their homes safely, but also to be able to ensure then that the well infrastructure that deals with the sewage, that those two are managed in a much better way in order to improve the health and safety of residents. This continues to be an area that concerns the government, and therefore we see it as important to maintain public safety, and therefore we hope that the NHC will be able to, in short order, be able to bring both these projects to conclusion, so that the people can recognize the difference between a caring government and one that clearly had no interest in their well-being. The remainder of the sum, sir, is to give some support for the other operations of the NHC in particular, to allow them to be able to execute their mandate, and therefore it is important that even at this time that we're able to ensure that, coming under significant strain to respond to Hurricane Elsa, and others would have caused, obviously, a slowdown in response in other areas, because we had to make sure that we focus on getting people back in their homes. It's not going as smoothly as we like, but we know that we should be in a position sometime next year to bring this to conclusion. And so, sir, I beg to move, with those very few words, I beg to move the Head 93 stand part.
And second that.
The question is that Head 93 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chair, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of 2 resolutions in Standing Finance Committee.
And second.
The question is that I do know report to His Honor.
I beg to move that you report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of 2 money resolutions in Standing Finance Committee.
The question is that I do know report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of 2 money resolutions in Standing Finance Committee. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say nay. He thinks the ayes have it.
The chairman of committees is reporting the passing of 2 money resolutions in committee. Honourable member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that resolution number 2 be read a first time.
And second that.
The question is that resolution number
2.
number 2.
2 and 3? Oh, sorry. Resolution number 2 and 3, sorry. Be read a first time.
The question is that resolutions number 2 and 3 be read a first time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that resolutions number 2 and 3 be read a second time.
Read second.
The question is that resolutions 2 and 3 be read a second time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that resolutions number 2 and 3 be now agreed to.
The question is that resolutions number 2 and 3 be now agreed to. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. Resolution 2 and 3 stand passed. Honourable member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, that brings us to the end of government business for the day. Speaking on the adjournment.
The year,
Oh,
the
and the year.
sir.
And the year.
Yes, sir.
And the year. Yes, that brings us to the end of government business for today and the year, sir. And if you'll leave speaking on the adjournment, sir, I want to thank all honourable members in this chamber for the robust debate that they have brought to this chamber this year. I want to thank, certainly, sir, the staff of Parliament, the staff who supports us when we are here, sir, late into the evening, with respect to being able to not just feed us, but to be able to give us the support, sir, without which we could not do the very work that we do in this place. I also, sir, want to thank the people of Barbados, sincerely, because last year, when we were looking forward to 2022, we all felt a very cautious sense of optimism as to what 2022 would bring. It has been a challenging year, but this government certainly has sought it fit to be able to respond as quickly as we can, sir, in a very measured way, to the needs and the concerns of ordinary Barbadians. And I can only say that it is with their continued support, sir, which again they reposed in us at the beginning of this year, sir, and I want to thank the people of Barbados for restoring their confidence in all 30 of us, sir, to come back to this place to do their business at this very challenging time. And that support is not in any way taken for granted, sir, because we know that this is a journey that is not meant, sir, for the faint-hearted, but for those who understand that leadership often requires that we step beyond our comfort zone in order to have sometimes difficult conversations with the very people who love us, sir. And therefore, it is important that we continue to show that leadership as we move into 2023. And therefore, at this Yuletide season, sir, it is important that I hope that we all get a chance to spend some time with our families, sir, some quality time with our families. I hope that those across all the communities in Barbados, that they too will take the time over the Christmas season, sir, to reflect not just on what has been a challenging year, but truly reflect on how we relate with each other, because the country must be able to go forward with calm assurance that in spite of any of the challenges that this country may face, that it is only through working together, sir, in a very focused and committed way that we can face down any challenge that may confront Barbados. And therefore, whilst we may look outside and see things may be happening faster or much easier than it may be happening here, we have taken a very deliberative approach to being able to ensure that we can bring along as many of the people on the journey to be able to improve the lives, sir, of not just themselves, but their families and their communities. And it is with that purpose that I look forward, sir, to 2023, knowing that, yes, there may be some uncertainty ahead, but I know that as Barbadians, sir, as Barbadians, that we can rise to the challenge, we can meet that challenge, sir, and to be able to turn any challenge, sir, into an opportunity for all of our citizens. And so I want to wish, sir, every Barbadian, sir, a very warm and happy Christmas. And as we look forward, certainly, to 2023, that I hope that it not just be prosperous, but we can all get through what is intended to be a positive year for Barbados. But we can only achieve that, sir, if we work together and be committed to making Barbados better for all of our people. And so, sir, with those very, very few words, I wish to adjourn the House until Tuesday, January 17th, 2023 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. I'm obliged to you.
Before we adjourn, I want to take this opportunity to wish all honorable members a blessed and safe Yuletide season. Take time to rest, enjoy it, recharge your batteries, come prepared to work even harder for the good people of this country in 2023. We envisage that it will be a challenging year, but I know that with God's grace, we can overcome all the challenges. I know that the possibility exists. I also want to thank the entire staff of Parliament for working assiduously to ensure that this Parliament functions and functions in the way that it does. I also want to take this opportunity to wish every Barbadian a happy Yuletide season and hope that in the spirit of Jesus that they come back. Also re-energized, committed, and working to make Barbados a better place for all of us to reside, live, and prosper. The question is that this Honourable Chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 17th day of January 2023 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. This Honourable Chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 17th day of January 2023 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.